right, so it appears looks like we are live now.
Looks like it.
Excellent. Thank you everybody for joining us, and I will call this meeting to order at 6:36 p.m. of the South Bend Empowerment Zone. First up on our, well, for roll purposes, we use our Zoom here, which is nice, kind of takes attendance for us, but I think we do have quorum and are just missing one board member at this time. So Miss Leslie Wesley is not on yet, but we will go ahead and for the essence of time, as we've got a lot of things to cover tonight, got an exciting board meeting, some great things going on in the South Bend Empowerment Zone. So we'll go ahead and start off with a couple board announcements and updates. And so the first item there on our agenda is Board of Directors recruitment update. And so I'll pass that to Jeff. I know you were working on that. If you want to talk about your committee's work on that process.
Sure. Jasmine and I have been tasked with filling Milt's spot. Milt Lee resigned to take a new position in the community, and we're grateful for Milt's service, but we're working to replace him. So we've had that out, circulated that amongst quite a bit of different constituency groups in the community, asked for applications to be received by the end of the evening this evening. And so we will close those. Jasmine and I will meet tomorrow then and begin review of those, and then hope to bring a recommendation back real soon. I'm not exactly sure how many applications we have right now, but again, tomorrow we'll pour through those that we have and begin that process. And so appreciate everybody that has interest in doing that.
Excellent. Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you, Jeff, our two J's on the board, for taking on that task for us, and good luck reviewing applications tomorrow. Looking forward to recommendations from you two for that. All right, so rolling on to our next item is going to be also because of Milt's departure from the board. We do have a vacancy with our secretary position, and that is something that we need to fill. And so I will entertain nominations if someone wants to nominate somebody, or if someone would like to nominate themselves to be in that role. And it's hard to make eye contact with you on Zoom, but I'm looking at a couple of you that I think would be great at it. Someone who doesn't already have a role in the board. Don't make me call on people here. Or are we just gonna leave it to the new person we appoint? So what a person that I would nominate, who I think has been doing a good job and has already stepped up and helping fill this role. I don't know, Jasmine, if you would be interested in serving as secretary to the board. But I know I always, I mean, with every board member, of course, but value your input and things that you bring to the table and comments you make during our conversations. And you stepped up to help fill the empty role here in reviewing. So maybe once that job is finished, if you'd be willing to take on the task of our secretary, I thought would be great.
Well, that was very kind, Sam.
I'm a good salesman. I'm a good salesman.
You are. Hey. Well, I think let us get the new person on the board and see if they want to do that. And if they do not, I would gladly take it.
I think that's fair. So this would be like is that a de facto nomination or a de facto acceptance, right? I don't think I've ever seen your shrewd negotiator too. So this is, I'm not sure. I don't think we have our attorney on the call if I can accept that as a formal nomination. But if we can go one more meeting without, and we can wait, and I think if you would tentatively accept the nomination to be secretary, I think does that work, Cheryl? Is that fair?
Sure.
Right. We're in charge, right? We can do what we want. Yeah. So there we go. Well, good. Well, thank you, Jasmine. I have appreciated your support. If anybody else is interested to jumping in before that happens, or we'll see who our next person is. And you can make sure during the interviews there that you screen for someone who would maybe make a great secretary. Luckily, Zoom takes our minutes for us, so it's fairly easy at this point. But thank you, Jasmine. And then with that, I'll guess I'll close nominations for now, and then we'll revisit this as an old agenda item on our next next agenda. So those are our board announcements and updates. Next, moving down our agenda is our information and updates, and we will start, and I will turn it over to Cheryl and her team, I think specifically Rob, to talk about our financial update.
Yes, thank you. So we're going to have Rob Diagnew, our Executive Director of Finance and Operations, give a series of financial updates to kick us off. You're on mute, Rob.
All right, thanks y'all. Good afternoon. I'm going to screen share here in just one moment, as soon as I have the permissions to be able to do that. But I wanted to give you a little bit of a preview about what I will share. So as Dr. Camacho alluded to, there's a series of budget updates that we'd like to talk through this evening. I'm going to give you an update about the budget, the audit, for example, and sort of where that stands. I'm going to give an update about sort of year-to-date expenditures as well, and then also talk about where we stand with regard to the sort of the central service menu process. So the first conversation or first topic that we have for this evening is the audit. So each year, the Empowerment Zone undertakes an annual audit, and our first annual audit is currently underway. And I wanted to talk through the process in terms of selecting the firm as well as sort of where things sit. So we've selected Aronofsky and Company with input from the Finance Committee, and we selected this organization local to South Bend based on 4 different criteria that we have listed here. 1 was their past performance, 2 was their cost, 3 was a look at sort of the credentials of the team, and 4 was the time and the timeline that it would take for them to be able to complete this particular audit. In terms of what that group of folks is looking at, they're looking at financial statements, they're looking at our internal controls. And in conversations with the audit team, they expect us to get those results back this week. And in terms of next steps, what that means is that we'll be sharing those results with the Empowerment Zone Chief, the Finance Committee, and you all as well at the Empowerment Zone Board of Directors at an upcoming meeting. Any questions, team, about the audit? Awesome, thanks. The second thing I wanted to do is talk through some year-to-date expenditures. And as a reminder, I wanted to talk about, we've got our Empowerment Zone budget, sort of our nonprofit budget, which I'll speak to in a moment. And then we also have the budget in terms of what's taking place at the 5 Empowerment Zone schools. And what I have on screen here is the school level education fund. In fact, at the school level, there's a series of different funds. So there's the education fund, which funds things like teachers, sort of the instructional component as well. And there's also a series of grants. What I've got listed here is the school level education fund. And one of the things we do is we take that budget that you as the board of directors passed last May, and we forecast out. We say, what do we expect to spend on any given month throughout the duration of the academic school year? And what I've got on screen here is to say that we were forecasted through January, which is the data that we've got available at this point, to spend about $5.8 million. What we've spent is this sort of 5.5 figure. To that difference of about 286,000. And the reason that we've got that is, one, when we look at what we budgeted for things like substitutes and class coverage, for example, we've spent less than what we were expected to there. 2, when we look at things, if there's any vacant positions, and what we've got listed here is we have had vacant positions, but they are more often than not non-certified staff currently. So for example, paraprofessionals as one set of positions that we continue, there's vacancies at the school level. And the third reason that's driving this is when we set this budget up, we make a series of assumptions about how much a position is going to cost. What's that average salary? What are those benefits? And what we're seeing is sort of what we budgeted is a little bit higher than what sort of our actual costs have been. And the point that I want to reinforce here at the bottom is, any balance at the end of the year can be used to create this stable reserve. And I do want to share that in our first year, we didn't have a reserve as an empowerment zone. And the other point that I want to make is, as you all are very well aware, is that our revenue is derived by a series of enrollment counts that take place during the year. So we build a budget with a projection about what our enrollment is, and then that's finalized at 3 different moments through the course of the year. So it's really critical that we've got a a stable reserve to mitigate any challenges with regard to enrollment or any challenges with regard to revenue. So when we see that potential balance at the end of the year, that goes a long way to creating that stable reserve. And then I also want to talk about the empowerment zone budget itself. So this is the five, like our nonprofit budget overall. And what we've got listed here is, our year-to-date expenditures at the empowerment zone level through January. What we've got below is sort of to say that we've spent about a third of our budget through 58% of the year. So like we're tracking below what we would expect to spend over the course of the year. The reason is sort of twofold. One is permanent vacant positions, again, where there's a set of positions that we were seeking to fill and are in the process of filling. And we've been able to utilize some of the other available grant funds to shift some of our annual expenses to other grants for the time being. And, again, the same point as the previous slide, that when we talk about any balance, like that can go to create that robust reserve, which I think is, really critical at this moment in time in any year, to make sure that we've got a reserve to be able to mitigate any enrollment changes over the course of the year, revenue changes over the course of the year. The last update that I'd like to provide is around the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, or ESSER, or sometimes it's also referred to as the CARES Act. Over this year, there's been sort of three different rounds of ESSER. And I wanted to talk about those different amounts, the timelines. So you may be very well familiar with the first round that was passed sort of this last spring. In total, the empowerment zone received about $1.8 million. What we've done is spent that this year on things like PPE. So for example, even earlier today, got a request for some additional masks, and we provide KN95 masks to any staff member that wants it. We do things like safety supplies. So the desk barriers that we put in place were funded through CARES, for example, and then also making sure that we've got the right set of rigorous curricular materials and intervention materials for our students to use this year. In addition to those funds, a second and third part of ESSER was passed earlier this year. In fact, that third part was passed just last week. And I've got the estimated share, and I'm working with the CFO, Karima Fowler, and team to make sure that we've got the specific amount ironed out. But I wanted to share with you all initial estimates of what that could be, where we're estimating roughly about $7 to $8 million in that second part 2 of ESSER. We've got the next 2 calendar years, school years rather, to spend those funds. So through school year 22-23, we do think that those funds will be able to be used in that next 1 to 2 months. Last week, there was also that passage of that third part. We think that that amount is going to be somewhere between $14 and $16 million total for the empowerment zone to be spent over the course of the next 3 years. And we're in the process, as you know, right now to build our annual budget next year. So at a high level, I can say that, we are intending to use these funds to support the academic and social emotional needs of our students, as well as to make sure that we've got the right safety, sort of safety supplies and procedures in place as well. So I'll pause and, board, what questions do you have about this or any of the other slides from this evening?
Rob, some of the savings in terms of like less substitutes or any of those other, is some of that pandemic related to some of that, like when, from e-learning, maybe there's less substitute use because of that, or?
Yeah, that's spot on, Sam. So that's spot on. So we've needed to spend less on substitutes and class coverage as a result of that over the course of the year, given the shift to e-learning, for example, right? There was a period of time where our students were all learning from home, didn't need substitute coverage in that same way. That's a really astute observation.
And so then it'll make hard predicting in the future. So we're gonna have to continue to predict at old levels. Not, usually you see a trend and it might continue. So thinking pandemic, everything in the last year doesn't count, right? In terms of trend projection budget. Okay.
Yeah, you make a really good point here to say, I wouldn't want to look at our spending levels on things this year and say that next year's expenditures would track in the same way. Like we do have to make sure that we are really thoughtful about what the projections look like this year and sort of make sure that we're using the right benchmark to do those projections in future years for the reasons that you just named.
Okay. Cool, thank you.
Rob, a quick question about the reserve, and my compliments to the staff for sort of recognizing that need and working to hustle to sort of help prepare us for those uncertainties. Is there a best practice, advice, goal, for that reserve? Or I mean, are we trying to build it to a certain level, or just kind of whatever we can get in there? To sort of plan for that rainy day. What is, I'm just more curious about a best practice or a goal there.
Yeah, that's a really great question, Jeff. And that's exactly what we're in the process is trying to find, like, what is the right target amount? Because there's a couple different benchmarks, right? There's a benchmark for nonprofits. If you think about what that should look like and sort of the number of months of sort of cash on hand that a different nonprofit has. There's benchmarks for school districts as well. And we're working with the corporation to figure out exactly what the right figure for that could look like. And there's other ways that we can also approach that to say, we want a reserve that would allow us to have, whether it's months of operating their expenditures or whether it's to say, our enrollment could decline by X and we could sort of maintain our current level of service. So that's exactly what we're thinking through to try to find out what that right target is to then make sure that we can say on an annual basis, this is what we want to be able to have in there.
Rob, I like that thought process. That was exactly where I was going to head to, was sensitivity analysis in terms of, if you look at our biggest sources of revenue and how those numbers can move up or down, based on the risk, and then looking at our variable costs and fixed costs and figuring out, how we can respond based on changes in revenue. So good stuff. You're on the right track. And I would say just a general comment, obviously, as you and Dr. Camacho know, you probably spend a little more time with me than you would like on some of the financial matters. And I would just say, really happy with where we've gotten to, a little over a year and a half. I know starting from scratch with no history and building systems takes some time, but I think there's a lot more clarity today, than obviously where we've had in the past, and I understand and get it. But this allows us to, for you guys, obviously, and us as a board too, to really be able to be better, be as informed as we can and understand, I think, and help you guys kind of sort through a lot of the decisions. So I appreciate the effort, in a really great spot.
Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you, team, for the questions and again, the thoughtful participation. Very much appreciated. So Dr. Camacho,
Excellent.
I'll hand it back to you and the next agenda item.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Rob. And
go ahead,
Oop.
Sam.
No, go ahead. So I was just going to say next agenda item. So I won't MC us any farther and let you keep running the show.
Oh, I'm happy for you to MC. All right, so next we're going to hear from Isaias Solis, our Executive Director of Student and School Supports, and he's going to talk about our Parent Advisory Council, which is something new that we started. So Isaias, if you would share your screen and turn on your camera and talk to us about that, that'd be great.
Absolutely, Dr. Camacho, and if someone will be kind enough to give me sharing privileges, that would be great, or we can pull up the slide that was up before. But I am charged with talking to you about the Parent Advisory Council, which we are very excited that Dr. Camacho launched and really started engaging many of our parents to drive and inform the strategy that you are seeing, right? But I want to start off with setting the context, or setting the story that I'm about to tell you, right? So I want you to look at this chart that you see here. And this is a dual capacity building framework for family and school partnerships, which is a publication of the Southwest Educational Development Laboratory in collaboration with the U.S. Department of Education. And what this framework does is that it presents a new framework for designing family engagement initiatives that really build on the capacity of not only educators, but school leaders and families to partner with one another around student success. And based on research and existing best practices, this is designed to essentially act as a scaffold as we're developing family engagement strategies, policies, and programs. So let's go ahead and dig a little bit deep into the context, because I think it's important as we set the scene as we tell you more about this Parent Advisory Council. So as you can look from that diagram that you have in front of you, right? What is the challenge that we have in our hands? And this challenge is not unique to the South Bend Empowerment Zone. You will see this challenge in many districts across the United States, right? The challenge is that educators or school leaders have not been exposed to strong examples of what family engagement looks like, right? Or school leaders. They have also sometimes have not received training on how to engage families in a appropriate way, right? They might also not see partnership as an essential practice with so many things going on in the school setting, right? That might be one of the last things that they think about. And they may also have developed, or there might exist a culture of a deficit mindset in the schools, in the community, in the district, that we don't really have a lot to gain from parents, right? From the family side, the challenge is that families might not have been exposed to strong examples of what family engagement looks like, right? So what does the school do to really engage families in a unique way? They might have also had negative past experiences with schools, educators, or school leaders, right? And they might also feel that there isn't an invitation to truly contribute to their children's education. And there might be another instance where families are not are feeling unheard, right? So that is the context that we were operating with as we were developing this Parent Advisory Council. Dr. Camacho was launching this off the ground, right? So what are the essential conditions that we're trying to get at with the Parent Advisory Council? We're trying to really drive this Parent Advisory Council based on relationships, right? We want to build mutual trust so that parents trust us, and in turn, we're also trusting parents, right? We want to make sure that there's a linkage to learning and development. We want to make sure that it's asset-based, that we are really learning and looking at the best of parents and they have to offer, that it's culturally responsive and respectful. It's also collaborative and interactive, right? And also we want to make sure that we are receiving that information that we're hearing from parents and integrating it into our practice so that we become better as an empowerment zone, right? And then we're also focused on sustainability, right? In essence, what we want to do is really create parent leaders, right? Who have capabilities, skills, and knowledge. They have the connections that extend out to the school, right? The networks. And they also have ships and beliefs and values, not only for educators, but also for parents, right? And then also that our parents have the confidence and the self-efficacy, right? To advocate. So now let's talk about the South Bend Empowerment Zone. So this is the theory, right? You might be asking yourself, okay, so tell us about what has been happening with the Parent Advisory Council. So this is where we get into the nitty gritty. So the Parent Advisory Council began meeting monthly in January 2021 with Dr. Camacho, and they provide input on strategy for the next school year, right? They're also, we're highlighting celebrations in terms of what is working well. And then we also ask parents to help us come up with solutions to challenges. And the Parent Advisory Council currently is composed of two parents from each of the Empowerment Zone schools, Coquillard, Harrison, Warren, and Wilson. So this is essentially the structure for the Parent Advisory Council here in the South Bend Empowerment Zone, right? One of the things where we started engaging parents is to give us really feedback. So we start all of these sessions, just so you know, with an icebreaker, right? Because we also want to build community between the parents, among the parents that are part of this group. So all of these sessions start with an icebreaker. It also delves into what is going well, what is not going well about their felt experience, about their children's felt experience. And then we also then discuss celebrations and also solutions about what is not going well, and we celebrate what is going well, right? But just for general context, in the first session, we asked parents for feedback about the vision, mission, and core beliefs of the Empowerment Zone, right? The last session, last month, we asked parents to really give us information and feedback on year 3 strategy and to also start imagining what summer school could look like, right? And we were better for it. Parents provided a lot of great input. Moving forward, we will be asking parents about hiring and staffing strategy, about transportation strategy, right? What are they envisioning for pre-K and preschool? And also, what are they envisioning for gifted and talented whole school enrichment, right? And then ultimately, what Dr. Camacho has the vision for is that at the end, we're celebrating parents, right? So we have this big celebration, right? COVID safe, where we are celebrating parents for their participation, celebrating their families, right? And as a community, we're wrapping around parents, and they're also wrapping around us as partners in this work. Here's a quick slide of one of the meetings, right? As you can see, we have a lot of engagement that happens in our sessions. Right now, they are happening virtually, of course, because it's safe. Dr. Camacho has arranged with the team that parents actually get dinner delivered every night, so they can fully participate in these parent advisory councils, and they don't have to worry about dinner. Of course, we want to make sure that parents are well tended to. And again, the feedback, the enjoyment, the laughs, but also the real conversations that are happening are very pivotal to what we're doing here with the Empowerment Zone. So as we wrap up, right, as I mentioned, relationships among the parents are critical, and they're often underemphasized, right, in schools across the nation. As the Empowerment Zone, we want to make sure that we are improving the relationships between parents and the Empowerment Zone leadership and also staff. Our hope is to make sure that we are making parents essential to the life of our school environment, where parents are visible and they're actually having relationships, right, with folks in our community. So we're really focusing on a paradigm shift that really hones in on the assets that parents bring to the table and also focuses on those assets to make sure that it's informing the overall Empowerment Zone strategy. We're also making sure that we're developing collaborative relationships with schools and parents, working on issues, right? And also creating trust. And most importantly, this Parent Advisory Council is also giving parents a space where they get to know one another, where they support one another, and then they're also building together a stronger connection to the South Bend Empowerment Zone. In essence, building a sense of community. So our theory of change, in short, is to make sure that we are developing parents as leaders first, so that they feel empowered, that they are empowered to inform Empowerment Zone strategy and to also work with all of our staff. So that's a quick update on the Parent Advisory Council, where we're headed, the entire theory in terms of the framework that we're following. And we will be very excited to just continue to give you feedback of what parents are sharing with us. So I'm going to stop there. I would love to, if you have any questions, thoughts, reactions about this strategy with the Parent Advisory Council, I would love to entertain those at this point.
I just wanted to say that I think this is amazing. There's a huge gap between the education systems and families and parents. So I think this is a beautiful and essential thing, the relationship, the voice, the space for this. So I just want to say that I think this is amazing. So great job.
I agree with Jasmine, and would also like to add how grateful we are to the leadership team, the principals, teachers. I know Cheryl, you shared, I think it was last month, about survey, just the attempt to get feedback and input and stuff. Obviously, parents are such a critical decision maker here, and I like the fact that you have several different ways of reaching and connecting with them, and this seems like an also a really important one. And I appreciate the insight and that continued focus.
Yeah, I would say too, I mean, the idea of it being proactive around the concept, as opposed to, a lot of times it becomes, probably the normal process to get feedback when big decisions, are made. And at that point, it's highly charged and emotional, right? And I think in this type of setting, the ability to be out front and gather feedback early and often, and I think, as Jasmine said, engage with these parents and empower them to increase the engagement, I think, really enables us to get a better sense of, the parental involvement and kind of what they're thinking and their thoughts. My only question would be, how do you make sure it's representative, I guess? Because there's a couple from each school, and I realize you can't have a committee of 100 people. Those don't work. So how do you balance enough input with not too much?
Yeah, that's a great question, Board Member Mathis. And one of the things, all credit goes to Dr. Camacho for the design, the development of this Parent Advisory Council. the team who provided input. I know that we put several fillers out there for parents that showed interest in being part of the Parent Advisory Council. And as we were designing the Parent Advisory Council, we were looking at very different elements of what would really make this Parent Advisory Council representative of the voices that we see, right? So parents that have different experiences in our school setting with different education settings, if you will, parents of different genders, different backgrounds and so forth, not only just life experiences, but also different professional experiences, right? And that's how we started creating this pilot. I know Dr. Camacho has been very upfront that this is a pilot. This is just a start, right? She envisions these parent advisory councils to essentially exist within each of our schools in a very systematic way. So that's what we've done so far. We are very intentional about inviting folks to the table and then utilizing those experiences to continue to build capacity and build to scale for the parent advisory councils.
Yeah, well done. He's a really good presentation.
Thank you all so much.
I'll maybe echo one more in terms of giving a little bit more kudos as well. But I think through the advocacy lens, it was valuable to me to hear you make that clarification of we don't want parents to feel like they're empowered at our schools. We want our parents to be empowered at our schools. And then that's what's transformative versus you can make people feel a whole lot of things, right? But we want them to be, and I love when you stated that in your presentation. And so I appreciate the intentionality and the focus that goes into doing that. So good work. Thank you.
Thank you, board members. Yes.
Phenomenal work, Isa. Thank you so much for presenting that to us. And next, we're going to hear from our Director of Academics, Maureen Torres. She's going to give an update on summer school. So we are deep in summer school planning. Maureen's going to share the elementary school update, and then we're going to have Principal Boyd from Navarre share the middle school update with summer school. So Maureen, it's all you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So we've been working, my team and I have been working on planning summer school, and we've been gathering ideas from principals, the Parent Advisory Council that Isa was just talking about. We're setting up some time with the teacher leadership team to get ideas from representing the teachers and the students. So with that, our next, can you all see the slides? Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Okay, here we go. So these are our high-level goals for the summer school that we've come up with, just thinking about the information that we've gathered so far. We knew that we wanted to have some portion of the day be academic intervention because there's skill gaps, and some of them were there before, and a lot of them are there because of the pandemic, because of the fact that we haven't been able to be face-to-face with our children. We'll be doing reading, math, and personalized skill building using our individualized platforms like iReady, math and reading. And we have specialized programs, a specialized training that we'll be giving our teachers who will be doing that academic intervention. And then we want to pilot our second step program that we purchased this year for social emotional learning that we haven't been able to get deep into. So that'll be a portion of our summer school day. And then we want to have community building. We want to kids have time for fun and to be together and to be kids and share and play together. And some of that will be structured work. We want them to learn to collaborate and have teamwork. And then we also want to have choices for students in enrichment classes. So students will be able to have the opportunity to choose their own adventure. We have a variety of topics: art, sports, STEM activities, games. And then throughout the day, we'll be working on writing about learning. So that's our way of bringing in the project-based learning, and students will be presenting on what they're learning. They'll be writing about their experiences. We want to take them on a lot of field trips. We want them to have experiences that they might not normally be able to have in their regular school day. And that will add up, hopefully, to a very joy-filled, high-impact summer learning experience for our students. How do I advance? Okay. Sorry. Okay. So just to give you a little bit of background into our goals, we asked the Parent Advisory Council what an ideal summer experience would look and feel like. And some of their responses were that part of the day should be for academics and the rest should be for art, music, drama, and sports. That we should be able to try to create a sense of normalcy and community with our students, give them time for socializing and having fun. Because as we know, most of our students have been cooped up at home for most of the winter and even some of the summer. They asked us to add field trips, STEM activities, cooking, and they asked us to plan experiences around weekly themes. They said we would like it to be more like a summer camp rather than regular school. We've also put out a student survey, and we're getting our responses coming in. The survey is due next week, but we've got quite a few student responses. One of the questions we asked was, if you could learn about anything, what would it be? So we had many kids say they wanted to speak another language, which is exciting. And some of the questions were, what happened before the slaves got enslaved? Like, what did they do to get enslaved? So there's some history. Fixing cars, baking, why did COVID come? How to read better, how to draw. They wanted to draw all kinds of things. So some were very detailed. Coding. Many students wanted to learn more about animals. And a few, not just one, were talking about how to help their families and how to make their parents happy. We also asked them, what problems would you like to solve in the world or in your community? And you can see racism, hunger, homelessness, COVID-19. One student put they wanted to solve 100 times 10,000. Littering, more recess time, bullying, people being rude. So they're like very aware that there are social problems that they want to be part of the solution. So we've been toying with this idea of making our summer enrichment program be about solving problems. What problems can you solve in the world, and making that our themes. We also asked the students, what are you really good at? And one little girl said, well, I am very tall for a 9-year-old. So it was a lot of fun. It was fun for us to get the student and parent feedback, because as we were brainstorming before the parent meeting, we had a lot of the same ideas. And then when the parents talked about what they wanted to do, we were like, this is very cool that we're all on the same page. So we do have some challenges. We have a very short summer because, as you know, we've extended our end date for school to June 10th. We have limited building usage because we're doing quite a bit of capital improvements at Cook, Willard, Wilson, and Navarre. And because of that, we're going to have to limit the number of students. We were hoping to provide summer opportunities for everyone, and now we're looking at narrowing that down. We also need to make sure we hire the right people that can provide very great intervention and fun, supportive environment for our students this summer. We have a lot of great teachers to pull from, so we're pretty confident we'll find the right people. And we also have plans to reach out to community partners to support our work. We'd like to bring people in to offer some of the choice classes that we want. We want to be able to take our kids around the city and in field trips and provide a lot of experiential opportunities for them to learn from. And then we also need to provide the accelerated skills so that we want our students to be more prepared for the next grade because of their summer school experience. And we want it to be hands-on and engaging. We know that part of it's going to be intensive intervention, but then we want the rest of it to be really, really fun. So that is our summer school plan so far. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Maureen, I might ask, just historically, have we done summer school? How many? I mean, is there much participation? Do we think we'll see a lot more this time around? Because I'm just more curious, like gauging sort of how we did in the past versus now.
I can jump in. Maureen, let me start since you weren't here last summer. Well, you had just started last summer, and then you can jump in if there's anything else. So last summer, there was no summer school offered by the Empowerment Zone. There was a corporation-wide summer school. I think it was like 2 weeks, a 2-week summer camp. So offering sort of like a month-long experience, and we are trying to offer at least 4 days a week. That is different, and we're really excited about the possibilities of it.
We think that there may be more demand than we can supply. We're hoping that it'll come out even, but we know parents are concerned about their students being behind, and they're also concerned about their socialization. They really want them back with other students, playing, having fun, and being part of a community again.
Thank you.
So we're going to hear from Principal Boyd to talk about Navarre and the plans for middle school. But before that, I just want to frame also that because we can't sort of offer summer school to everybody, we really are thinking about next year and what adjustments to next year we need to make to ensure that every child gets what they need to recover from this moment in time. So we'll be presenting more on that in our May board meeting on strategy for next year and the budget we're proposing for that as well. So Principal Nathan Boyd, why don't you share with us your dreams and hopes and thoughts for middle school summer school?
Absolutely. And let me start by saying thank you for giving me an opportunity to share, Dr. Camacho. I really appreciate this opportunity, and I also want to say hello and greetings to our board. I appreciate all the work that you've done for our children, for our community, and I'm just excited about this opportunity. I want to state that everything that Maureen just listed, I would definitely have to co-sign. I would have to, make certain that she is an individual that we are following as well. There's been many items that she listed as far as excitement and having trips and partnerships within the community that are definitely aligned for our middle school as well. But I would also like to share just a few additional factors that that we at the middle school are trying to wrap our minds around in terms of reimagining what middle school summer school experience should be about. And so if I could for a moment, I'm going to share my screen and talk just briefly about some of our broad objectives for a new, and I really hate to even call it summer school, because we want to change the mindset around what this experience is supposed to be for our children. So when we really talk about our goals and our aspirations, there are a few things that I think it's important that we recognize and take some time to problem solve through. So we talk about objectives, the very first being establishing a foundation for not only success this summer, but how can we gain some momentum that's going to lead us into some success and, kind of set the pathway for our children into our upcoming school year for the 21-22 school year. Really focusing on individualized learning and personal growth for each and every child. Personal bests. Many of you already know that our motto at this school is 100% effort, 100% of the time. And we spend a lot of time talking about effort and what that means for each individual child. That might look different for each individual child, and that is 100% okay. That's what we want here in this building. So when we talk about confronting some of the challenges that we faced here in this building in the past, we want to confront things like learned helplessness. We want to confront the why behind why it's even important we're addressing this, and how it even came about. We want to develop confidence and efficacy in our children that are academically behind. We want to support them, and we want them to develop not only a love for learning, but we all know that for many of us, we have to learn how to learn first. And those are items that we have to put some attention around as we try to nurture our children, have a nurturing environment, an environment where our children are echoing I can statements and I will, which is all related to that growth mindset that I'm sure many of you are fully aware of. That means that we will have some traditional measurements, but we also will have some non-traditional measures that I want to point out. Some of those non-traditional measures might look like some initial pre and post survey data that we might be doing with our students and families as we launch into this summer school setting, as well as the next school year. Helping our children set goals with guided support, helping them monitor growth, helping them monitor their goals, and having adults that are beside them as we actually do things like action plan, having test talks, talking about their data. Again, the why behind our efforts is really important. Strength finder assessment with kids. For many of us, it's easy to find out what our strengths are. I know that I am a visual learner. I know I learn best when I have something in front of me. I know I learn best when I can sketch and draw. But spending time with our children to really investigate with them things that they may be good at, things that they themselves never knew, they were good at, and what that means in an academic world, and setting goals in terms of future career aspirations that, again, many of our children never knew were actual jobs and careers that are out there in our world. Obviously, we want to have student interviews, and we want to make certain that we have children that are represented within our community, making sure that we are sitting down with children and actually getting their opinion about what it is they would like summer school to look like. One of the other things I really want to spend some time chatting about for a moment is we want to make sure that our children, again, see the purpose behind school, right? School still is going to be the best avenue to help our children and families have a life that our children may deem their best life. One of the things that we've talked about with our children over the last week is, what does your best life look like? What does it look like after you leave Navarre? What does it look like after you leave high school? What are those aspirations? And let's really start to define them out. Our kids are at an age now where they can start to look a few years down the road, and they can start to articulate what that might look like, how that feels, and how we can support them chase those dreams. So when we talk about those things, that means that we have student voice upon every aspect of the development of summer school. And so one of the items I'm very excited about is next week's focus group. We have a selection of students that we will be sitting down with, about 15 kids between 6th and 8th grade. And we will be sitting down with them to talk about, what is summer school to you? What is an exciting summer experience? What do you want summer school to look like? What would summer school look like here at Navarre that you would attend, for the entire month? What are some things that you yourself would like to experience? Places you'd like to go, activities that you would like to participate, subjects that are most interesting to you. Those are the things that we would like to sit down with our focus group, with our children, and actually help them, or have them help us design a summer school experience that they themselves find ownership with, I want our children to feel like they were a part of the process. They're old enough, I believe, and wise enough to tell us what it is they'd like to experience in. So I'm very excited for that process that's going to get started next week. So again, I wanted to share a few items that were in addition to some of the things that Maureen just named. The focus group will be very telling. It will be a very energetic group of kids that, again, we're going to throw the keys to the car and say, you know, where do you want this to land? Where do you want our final destination to be? And I'm excited to see what they may dream up. Any questions?
All
Not a
right.
question, but I guess just a comment would be, I love just the thought of changing, you know, the stigma of summer school as being a punishment, right? To being like, I hope I get to go, right? And so I think that's great, whether they're going to go and learn cars or how to make mom happy. I think that's really cool. So I'm excited about what you guys are doing to try to create that experience for students. So thank you to both of you.
Well, I appreciate that. As we were sitting dreaming about what we wanted summer school to look like this coming year, we spent some time just chatting about our objectives. And obviously, one of the biggest items is for school to be relevant, right? We want our children to find relevancy in everything we do. Yeah, I'm going to be talking soon about some of the interesting electives that we have here at the building, and that was part of our goal, is to have our children find purpose in these walls, find purpose in the curriculum that we're presenting. We want them to be present. We want them to see themselves and to once again be inspired about what education can really do for them, for our community. And so that's part of our big goals. And so as we were sitting down, Dr. Camacho was a huge part, a huge catalyst of this. And it's just, you know, our kids, we have 10-year-olds, we have all the way to 13, 14-year-olds. And I think it's time that that they get a little bit more involved. And we have the children that are very creative. We have children that are opinionated, and we want them to be a part of this this design process. So, you know, I am fully anticipating giving Dr. Camacho a huge budget that she'll have to figure out a way to cover.
Don't worry, we're not going to use up that reserve, y'all, but Nate, that's your job to advocate for those things. Thank you, Principal Boyd, for the presentation. Thank you, Maureen. I'm really excited about what you both are planning and dreaming up for elementary and middle school summer school. We're going to invite Principal Boyd back to our May board meeting where we preview out next year's strategy and budget. Because there's some really exciting things. I'm excited. I'm going to be a Navarre parent next year. My 6th grader will be at Navarre proudly. She's very excited about it. I'm excited as well because there's a lot of great things happening at Navarre. So thank you, Principal Boyd. Appreciate that.
Excellent. Well, thank you. We'll keep moving down our agenda here. And so now we are on item number 3, which is our discuss and consider portion of the agenda. And so we've got one item here, and it's our Sbcsc Empowerment Zone MOU adjustments discussion. And so, Dr. Camacho, I will let you take that away.
Wonderful. Thank you. So yes, we are bringing to the board just some adjustments that we'd like to make to the MOU between the corporation and the empowerment zone. And just to give a little framing to the listening public, you know, there's this great potential in this relationship between the empowerment zone and the broader corporation of which we're a part of. And the way we really think about our work in the empowerment zone is that because of our smaller size, and we're able to sort of really zoom in on our 5 schools, we're able to customize some of our strategy and be really responsive to what needs are emerging from our students, from our families, from our staff, in a way that I think is tougher for our larger district to do. And while we know the corporation is working really hard on their improvement efforts, I believe that we have a unique role to play in supporting that by sort of going ahead and piloting things and innovating strategies and customizing supports, as I said earlier, that are in response to what our students, our families, and our staff need. And, you know, it's not like we just kind of go out and do stuff. I do not believe in undisciplined innovation, right? Where we're just trying new things to try them. But I do believe that there's a role for the innovation to play in sort of redefining status quo and charting a new path forward. So as I think about the strategies that we're trying, we are really sort of collecting data, analyzing impact, and there's organizational learning that's happening that we're integrating into our strategy and that we like to share with the corporations so they can integrate into their strategy as well. So there's a really important relationship that we play by being different sometimes and by trying things that are maybe the rest of the corporation isn't trying. So in service to supporting us to be able to customize and innovate and sort of, you know, forge a path in places, there are some changes that we are proposing be made in the Memorandum of Understanding between the corporation and the empowerment zone. And for the listening public, this Memorandum of Understanding was created when the empowerment zone was created, and it was ratified, voted on by the corporation board to approve the existence of the empowerment zone. And so in this MOU, it outlines our freedoms and limitations around things like governance, strategy, operations, and finance. And we're interested in making some specific adjustments to the following areas, again, to enable us to contextualize our strategy to what our students and schools need. So in the MOU, there's a section on non-optional services, and there are certain services that are listed as non-optional. So every year, we go through a process where the corporation creates what I like to call a menu of services, looking at different services that the corporation provides. So whether that's professional learning support, whether it is payroll, whether it is special education services, there are just different things that the corporation does. And as an empowerment zone, we have the ability to opt in to or to purchase some of those services. Currently in the MOU, there are some services that are listed as non-optional, and we would like the flexibility to be able to opt out of some of those services that are currently listed. The other area where we're interested in shifting the MOU was around communication and program coordination. So we think it's really important because we bargain side by side with the corporation, with bargaining units, because we have this important strategy that we need to sort of link to the broader corporation's goals of improvement. We think it's important that we really strengthen communication around the strategy and the coordination. And so that's another change that we'd like to build into the MOU. Around information sharing, we are proposing that we build in a formal agreement to share academic data both ways. So it'll enable us to track progress and impact. Because we have a really punctuated timeline to show dramatic improvements, it's important for us to understand what I like to call the end, like what is the overarching, what's happening with the rest of the corporation. And then that helps us contextualize if what we're doing is just sort of the same as what's happening, or if what we're doing is having impact and accelerating student growth and learning. And then the last portion that we are proposing is that we want to define some prioritization standards for all facilities, so we can just have clarity on what we can expect for facility support. So these are the different areas that we are proposing. We've been in talks with administration for the corporation, and here's the timeline. So tonight, I wanted to bring this to you all to ask for your support in approving some of these proposed changes that I've highlighted. And next steps would be aligning with the corporation's administration on the final Memorandum of Understanding changes in advance of the next corporation board meeting. And then asking the corporation board to vote formally on those final Memorandum of Understanding changes at a March board meeting. So that's the timeline, that's the frame. I'm going to stop my share and ask what questions you have.
Cheryl, can I ask, can you throw the one slide back up, just that shows the 4 different areas that we're asking, just to help make sure we're clear, or maybe, yeah, yes. That one. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And a procedural question, once once the empowerment zone and the Sbcsc can come to an agreement on this, does that need to go to the State Board of Education as well? Do they need to sign off or give a thumbs up? Okay.
No, we've looped our connection to the Indiana State Board of Education into what we're wanting to do, and they're in support of that, but they don't need any formal sort of approval of that.
Okay.
So I've less of a question, more of a comment. Obviously when Cheryl, you mentioned that much of this was created before the zone was even put in place. So so we made some initial determinations, and then what we're trying to do is adjust over time. So I think we were tasked initially with sort of being that incubator ideas and being different and being innovative and such. And so, and I think you spoke to the important partnership with the school corporation, and at the same time, our ability and want to try different things that ultimately could influence things that happen in the school corporation. So I'm just coming this at the lens of, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's obviously complicated a little bit, because both boards need to approve or bless this. So like in my head, for example, I'm really comfortable blessing a process by which we say we're in support of amending the memorandum for these topics, and then empowering you as the zone chief to work out the final details. So I think there's a little bit of as I sense, some discussion that still needs to happen there, and I don't know that I feel good about sort of the broad topic area, you understanding that these are priorities, and you being able to articulate to the school board that this board has tasked you with finalizing that. So I maybe more just a comment on maybe where I'm at on this.
Thank you, Jeff.
And I don't want to limit any discussion, but I suppose if there wasn't any, I'm happy to make a motion too. But I didn't want to circumvent anybody else's kind of questions or there.
So also just clarifying kind of process. So then the Sbcsc will have their next board meeting coming up, their second board meeting of March. And then we would, at what point then, what's the night, just thinking other steps. So they're going to have that. I know the attorneys are reviewing to make sure everything's in line. And so just thinking about in terms of our ability to then implement post approval, when will that happen?
Yeah, it's my understanding that as soon as the corporation board votes on those changes, that they're effective immediately. So we'll be able to carry work forward from that vote.
Cool. I like a simple process. So that sounds good. And I also agree. I think thinking of the points in allowing our continued flexibility and increased ability to kind of pinpoint on some things that we think are most critical at our schools, to make sure that we're able to create the unique intervention that we need. I think this is great, and making sure that we're continuing to build that partnership with the school corporation.
All right, hearing no one, I'll make a motion that we seek changes in the memorandum of understanding that was executed between the empowerment zone and the South Bend Community School Corporation, and that those changes be really centered around the areas of the non-optional services, the communication program coordination, the information sharing, and the facilities, and that we authorize our zone chief and the staff of the empowerment zone to work closely with the with the staff of the school corporation and with school board to finalize the exact details of that of those changes to the memorandum of understanding.
Thank you, Jeff, for the motion, and then I will look for a second for that
Second.
motion, please.
Second that.
Thank you, Ryan, for the second. Is there any additional discussion on the longest motion I've ever heard? But thank you, Jeff, for being thorough. Good thing you're not the secretary yet, Jasmine, because that'd be a long motion to make sure you write down and get correct.
I thought we got paid by the word. I'm sorry.
Any additional discussion? All right, then I will just kind of do as a voice vote here. So all in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposition? Any opposition, same sign or raise your hand. Any abstentions? Hearing none, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you to the board for that. And then I guess congratulations to you, Cheryl. You've got another job to do now. So, but I'm excited about this. I'm glad, to see the thorough work that's going into laying the groundwork for this. And then I think the thorough work that'll follow it as we continue to sharpen this agreement in a way that, supports our students and families at our empowerment zone schools. So thank you very much, everybody. So with that, closing out business, we do have one public comment. So we open up public comments and folks are able to complete a form and submit a comment. I am reading those at every board meeting unamended. And the cool thing about getting these comments in advance is that we actually get a chance to act on them as soon as we hear them. So I will then give Cheryl a chance to respond to the public comment. But we got a comment from Mindy Johnson on Dunham Street. Are we ever going to go back to in-person learning? Sheltered e-learning makes no sense. My kids need face-to-face learning. If we are going to have them back in the school, why not teach them instead of making them do e-learning while in the classroom? They have been out of the classroom for over a year now and are suffering for it. With the vaccines becoming available and lower infection rates, I see no reason for them not to be in the classroom and with the teacher there teaching them.
Well, I appreciate the comment, and I'm really excited to say that we have opened up our schools and our seats to any parent that wants to send their child in person. Currently, we have over 80% of our families who've opted to send their children back in person, and they are. At the middle school level, we are continuing to do sheltered e-learning because we've been offering at Navarre something that other folks haven't, which is 4 days of middle school live, instruction, and then an asynchronous day on Fridays. And because of the concerns around the spread of COVID-19 currently, we feel most comfortable continuing with sheltered e-learning at Navarre, but it is in person. And as conditions continue to improve, we will be able to go back to quote unquote normal, which is exciting. So I have had my staff sort of reach out to this parent. I know that in conversing with Principal Boyd, this is a Navarre parent, and he's going to reach out to her. There's been some conversation back and forth already, but he's going to reach out to her to restate that any child that wants to come to school in person is welcome. So thank you very much for the public comment. And I know Principal Boyd will be following up directly.
Thank you, Cheryl, for the quick follow-up on that. And then also to mention to any parent or anybody involved in our community that would like to make a comment, either to a board member or to our staff at any time, please feel free to share those with us so that we can follow up and can answer those questions as they come up. And we appreciate, as I think we've noted on the report several times, or in the reports given by staff as well. And I will say that on behalf of the board, that constantly seeking input in all directions, and happy to have that and address that. And I hope that we're able to continue to do that for any of the families that are in our South Bend Empowerment Zone schools. So thank you for the comment. With that, I will entertain, seeing any other board comments, or, okay, Jeff raised his hand there real quickly.
I apologize. More of a question that came up during the summer school presentation. You mentioned that Coquillard, Wilson, and Navarre would be undergoing some improvements this summer and would make them potentially not available for summer school. So more just a curiosity, does that happen every summer in so many buildings? Is that a referendum specific improvement? Can you just help us understand, kind of what was meant by that comment?
Yes, great question, Jeff. So it is a referendum-based sort of improvement. There are some real facilities improvements we need to do at Coquillard and Navarre and Wilson. And so because of the referendum dollars, it's enabling the corporation to sort of take on those capital projects this summer. Timeline is still a little unclear. I know we need to put out for bids and things like that. So we're not going to know the actual summer timeline until May, is what I've been told. But I'm really excited that we're able to get these capital improvements in place. And I'm even more excited for our children to walk into those buildings next year, seeing those improvements and having those improvements speak value to them. So thank you for asking, Jeff. Really excited the community passed the referendum.
Great. Thank you, Cheryl.
Absolutely.
Great question. Any other questions, comments before we? All right, so seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:46 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
So moved, Ryan, second, Jeff. And seeing any opposition? All right, seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Yes,
Enjoy
thank
your
you
dinner.
all.
Enjoy the nice weather the rest of the week. And take care and see y'all